Hello all, in this video we'll see the summary of Aristotle's famous work, Poetics. Aristotle believed that people naturally like to imitate. Imitation helps them to learn, especially from a young age. This natural habit of copying leads to enjoyment when people see imitations such as plays or pictures. Even if the image is sad or violent, people enjoy it because they feel safe and understand what is being shown. This understanding is a major reason why imitation is enjoyable. Aristotle notes that people are naturally drawn to rhythm and melody, so it is not surprising that poetry became popular form of imitation. Tragedy first started from a type of performance called dithyrambic poetry, which combined poetry with dance. Over time, it developed into what he considered the complete form of tragedy in his own time. He lists various types of poetry such as dithyrambic poetry, comedy, tragedy, epic poetry, and music played on instruments like the lyre or pipe. He explains that all poetry is a type of imitation. The main differences lie in three things: the medium used, the object being imitated, and the way imitation is done. For example, poets use rhythm, language, and melody either separately or together. Painters use color and shape. The object being imitated is what the poem is about, like people, actions, or events. These can be morally good, superior, or bad, inferior. The mode is how the imitation is delivered. For example, epic poetry tells a story through narration, while tragedy shows the story through actors on stage. Comedy imitates people who are not ideal but does so in a light and harmless way. These characters might make silly mistakes, but they are not evil, and the audience is not supposed to feel sad or fearful. Tragedy and epic poetry portray noble characters, but epic poetry tells the story in verse and often through one narrator without songs or performance. Epics are usually long and cover many events, while tragedies often focus on a single event within a short time frame, usually one day. A person who understands tragedy well can also understand epics, but not the other way around. Tragedy includes all elements of epic poetry and more. It imitates noble actions and is performed by actors. Its purpose is to bring about a cleansing or emotional release in the audience. This Aristotle calls catharsis, which happens through feelings of pity and fear. Aristotle identifies 6 parts of tragedy: plot, character, language, that is diction, thought, visual presentation, and song. Among these, plot is the most important because tragedy imitates actions, not people. Plot should include key turning points like recognition and reversal, which help produce catharsis. A good tragedy must have a clear beginning, middle, and end. It should not be too short or too long, and its parts must fit together in a unified way. This unity makes it easier for the audience to understand and feel the full impact of the story. Aristotle argues that poetry does not describe what actually happens but what could happen. In this way, poets differ from historians. A poet imagines what is likely or possible, while a historian records past facts. Even if a historian writes in verse, it does not make their work poetry. Tragedy must not only imitate a complete action but also stir the necessary emotions for catharsis. Unexpected events are the best way to achieve this effect. Every tragedy involves a change in fortune, which can be simple or complex. A simple plot has a change without recognition or reversal. A complex plot includes these elements. A reversal is a sudden shift in the story's direction which makes sense based on what has happened so far. Recognition is a moment when a character gains important knowledge, often revealing relationships or consequences. Aristotle thought that the best tragedies combine reversal and recognition at the same moment, as in Sophocles' Oedipus Rex. These moments heighten fear and pity. He believes that not all kinds of characters work well in tragedies. A perfectly good person who suffers does not create fear or pity, just shock. A completely evil person becoming successful is not tragic either. The best tragic character is someone in between, not totally good or bad, who makes a mistake that leads to downfall. These stories create more powerful emotional responses. Tragic actions are most moving when they occur between people who are close, like family. Acts like killing a parent or child evoke the strongest emotions. Aristotle explains four main qualities for good characters. First is moral goodness. Second, characters should be appropriate for their role. Third, they should be realistic and lifelike. Fourth, they should be consistent. If they behave inconsistently, it should make sense within the story. Poets should imagine scenes as if they are happening in front of them, which helps avoid mistakes in storytelling. A tragedy must include both complications, that is, problems, and resolutions, that is, solutions, and both should be handled with care. Language in tragedy includes nouns, verbs, and full expressions. Good language should be clear but still artistic. If it uses only everyday words, it becomes dull and loses its creative touch. So, a mix of ordinary and unusual words like metaphors or invented terms makes poetry better. Some people criticize poetry as being impossible or incorrect, but Aristotle responded by saying that even strange events can be believable if they follow a logical pattern. Something may seem false but might actually reflect what people think should happen or what often happens, not necessarily what happened. Aristotle argues that tragedy is better than epic poetry. Tragedies are shorter, more focused, and use music and performance to add emotional depth. He believes concentrated stories bring more pleasure than long, stretched out ones. For example, Sophocles' Oedipus Rex would not have the same impact if it were as long as Homer's Iliad. It is also harder to keep unity in long epics. Aristotle values tragedy more because of its ability to produce catharsis through fear and pity.